How do you figure out like what I'm making right now feels real to me? This is not under any influence or like you're getting close to who you are.
It's absolutely inevitable that you are inspired. Whether you want to admit or not, you always feel whether it's authentic. You feel it in your heart, in your gut. Doubt in yourself, it's completely normal, and it's natural. So accept that doubt and then just push it away and come back to your work. There is a lot of us who actually would dare to be mothers and artists at the same time, and a lot of us who said, I have a lot of friends who just gave up. Nobody can take away the hours in your studio, the way how you express your artistic language, the way how you pursue your voice. Nobody can take that. This is yours, and all the other things are just external values, which are great, but not necessarily something what you need for your life.
Hey, you guys, welcome back to the another episode of the Arts to Hearts podcast. This is your host, Charuka. I'm an artist, creator, and founder of Arts to Hearts project. I'm very excited to be back on the podcast with another excellent episode. This episode is actually something that we've not been able to offer in previous episodes, and I'm very, very, very grateful for this conversation. I had Andrea on the podcast, who is an artist based out of Czech Republic, and she has so many accolades, prizes, exhibits on her name. But you know me. If you listen to this podcast, this is not what I chase. We spoke about quite a few things, but I think what was my biggest takeaway in this episode was her honesty when it came to one of the struggles that artists often don't speak about, but we all struggle with, which is managing the professional life, our creative aspirations with our personal life. Andrea really put it so excellently forward and very honestly. And I think I've also shared this on the podcast so many times that I felt like in the past 2 years, life has come so much in my way that I'm not able to feel myself. And I feel like this tug of war between me, I want to I want to do so many things, but then I feel like I'm present, but so many times I'm not present. And we spoke quite a bit about that in the end of the episode. So make sure about 20 minutes in, and that's when she really talks about these things that really touched me. Apart from that, she actually had some really great experiences to share about finding her voice. She started her journey while there was no internet, nothing at all. And from then to now, in 25 years, she has not only had incredible success when it comes to traditional shows and um, awards and recognition, but also she has an incredible following she's built for herself on social media. And she talks about change and how it is important to be consistent. And I think something she kept on focusing on was showing up. And that's something we all actually have been talking about. And I think she just brought a lot more nuanced version um, of this experience. So yeah, this episode is excellent for anyone who currently feels that their life is taking over and they are struggling with finding that creative time for themselves, like taking themselves too seriously or feeling unavailable as a person to their family and feeling too invested. I think we spoke about quite a few directions in this context, and of course finding your voice and how to make things happen for you. So there were quite a few things, but I think this is what I would say is I would take away from this episode. So I would be very grateful if you like this episode, you subscribe us, because it truly helps us take this episode to a larger audience and really helps the show. And make sure, if you're listening to this episode on YouTube, if you can share it with a friend, let someone know about it, or share on your Instagram or whatever. Just supporting us in these little ways can make all of this effort so much more encouraging for us, our team, to make sure we get, more exciting guests, have more intense conversations, make this a better podcast for all of us, an experience that we all would cherish. So yeah, that's it from my end, and I'll see you in the recording. What was the first time you thought you knew, like, you want to be an artist, or you I think we don't want to be an artist, we all are artists, we just uncover that at some point in our life. What was that moment for you?
I think that everything what you ask is probably connected back to my childhood and my childhood memories, because I remember having a father who was showing me the unusual shapes, or teaching me a conscious observation, led me to realize what amazing things or shapes or colors life can offer. That way it created probably the moments when I came to at my teenage age. I decided, or I was always creating something, drawing something. My mom was an artist, my father
What
was
did your mom do?
my mom is an art teacher, but she
Oh
draw
wow.
and paint. And my father, he worked as an architect, but he was working with wood, and he always does. So he created like a wooden sculptures, or he was having that type of observation of shapes, which actually led me to understand the life better, I think, deeply. So I'm very thankful for my parents guiding me that way towards my own realization. Okay, so this is what I want to do. I want to express myself. I want to express myself in color. So very early in my teenager part of my life, which everyone is like discovering or rediscovering who they are, I created a lot. I draw a lot. I painted a lot. I was part of numerous small competitions, like a children or students competition. And then I decided I would like to go and pursue an artist career. So I studied art.
And all of this while you were in Prague?
No. I was in Slovakia, which I'm from Slovakia. It's a small country in Europe, in Central Europe, which is close to Prague, Czech Republic. So I am from Slovakia. So I studied in Prešov in the Faculty of Arts and Humanities. And then I don't know exactly when that came, but I was always fascinated by the world of arts, and the artist's life and biographies and all these things. It just was always connected to my life. So I don't exactly cannot point the finger, like there was the
Yeah.
moment when I realized I'm an artist, but I always kind of felt that art is part of my life.
But do you think that was also because, like, you were lucky enough to have creative parents, and the idea, because for let's say for me, I remember I didn't know, like, I was creative, but I didn't know I could be an artist for a very long time until my 20s, because I never had anyone in front of me who could, like, okay, this was possible, like this is something that people do. For me, art was something like, creativity was something like, women are creative, like going in. And I'm sure I want to hear how you also grew up in Eastern Europe, because like growing up in India, because it's pretty patriarchal, so it was pretty common, like women or girls are creative, and then you paint and you create, and versus boys are athletic. So yeah, like it never felt like I had something unique or I had something special. It always felt like something that everybody had. But I think what felt different was, I did know that how I felt. I knew that not everybody felt that way with art, and I felt like that. So do you also think like your parents' possibility of, like, they taking creative roles in their own life really made that like a strong grounding for you for such an early age to, you know that, okay, this is something I could do?
I think what you're saying, it's I hear you, and it resonates with me a lot, because even though my parents were super creative, they both believed that I should pursue a different type of education also. So I would have a
Yeah.
diploma to teach, uh, in case I wouldn't make it as an artist, right? So that's
Yes.
always the parents' worries. So of course they did that. So that therefore I did have a degree in teaching, and I am
Okay.
also a teacher. I do lead workshops and arts therapy workshops as well, and creative workshops. But I think that when I realized, probably I'm actually connecting these points, and when I realized deeply that I really don't care what anyone else is thinking, and I'm going to make it, is when I had my son, when I had my child, and I realized it actually created tremendous change in my work, because I needed to, flip from the large work on canvas to smaller work on, watercolor when he was napping, or, like it in my
Yeah.
practice changed. And, it actually gave me so much confidence that, if I can make it under these circumstances, I can make anytime. So slowly, I mean, yes, of course, as every artist out there, I had my doubts about whether I can or cannot make the things happen for me in an art world. And even nowadays, like, I don't think it's ever gonna stop. Like,
Yeah.
you are going to be fine for a couple years, or for a year, or for a month, and then something comes up, or you apply for some contest or a gallery representation, and they would write you back, and that might discourage you for a moment. But
Yeah.
I think that the art world, especially for women, it belongs to those from us who actually have a strong, authentic belief that we can make it, and we believe who we are truly.
Yeah.
So we know that our value is not, based on external values from
Yeah.
curators, from galleries, from judges or art critics. Because once you truly know that, and you know that you're creating authentic art,
Yeah.
nobody can actually take it away from you. Nobody can
Yeah.
take away the hours in your studio, the way how you express your artistic language, the way how you pursue your voice. Nobody can take that. This is yours. And all the
Yeah.
other things are just external values, which are great, but not necessarily, something what you need for your life.
When we say, like, authentic, it's a word that, we use so often. And I'm interested in knowing, how did you find your authenticity? Like, knowing, like, there's not, like, it's not like a straight answer,
Hmm.
like, okay, I did this and I felt like, okay, this is true to me, this is me. How, as a creative person, do you know how do you figure out, like, what I'm making right now feels real to me? This is not under any influence, or like you're getting close to who you are.
Hmm. I think you just, somehow feeling in your guts, and whenever you copy something, you also feel it.
Yes,
It's also,
absolutely.
absolutely. So, you can get inspired by others, and, it's absolutely inevitable that you are inspired, because that visual, you know, overcoming of things, either it's on social media or in the art world, or you go to exhibitions, or you go to the studios of other artists. It's, of course, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. You're going to be inspired by either the world or other artists. But in the moment when you know that the way how you create, it's coming from you, you are in the flow, you create, you can get inspired, but you implement that part of inspiration into your own voice, you feel it. You feel that this is something what is yours. I think that whether you want to admit or not, you always feel whether it's authentic. And you
Yeah.
feel it in your heart, in your guts. You feel it, that you are so connected to yourself while you create, that there is nothing from the outside world that actually can achieve the connection to you at that moment. Sometimes it's even disturbing, so people would call you to eat or drink, and you know that you don't want to, because you are in the middle of something. So I think that is important. But also, I think what is important, and very much so, and what I'm talking to my students when they ask similar questions, is don't seek outside validation. Seek
Oh goodness.
yourself.
Oh goodness.
Validation, what you do. And when you can look in your own work and say, oh my God, really, this is me, I connect with it so much. I see myself and it speaks to others. You also would see how that speaks to others. If it pursues through the channel to others, like something what's coming across like authentic. If it doesn't, then it usually, doesn't make an impact the way when it's real. And I think that, like the good painting is always good painting, whether it's abstract painting, whether it's a
Yeah.
figurative painting, whether it's whatever it is, but it's good painting. And if it's not, then it doesn't speak. And if it's copy, it doesn't speak. So the most important of all is that when you don't seek the outside validation, see it in yourself and see it in a way how you pursue the creative process, but also what is it coming back to you, what do you see in it, and how this speaks to others. Okay, so that's the first level of it.
And when you're speaking of this, what do you think was your biggest struggle when it came to finding that authenticity? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what was the hardest part of it?
Oh, the hardest part was probably to get rid of all the academic knowledge.
You also, because you came from the art school.
Exactly. So, like you are so much into it and so much in that world. You speak to the people you respect, you speak to, or you are actually guided or, influenced by the people who are great, right? You do the work under their supervision. And then you have so much trouble to get rid of it because, as you say, their voice is so strong and already authentic that it's in you. And you have, like you have to get rid of all that. And so when I started to paint in my studios, I was actually feeling that there is a lot of influence of my university professors and people I admire as an artist. And slowly, why how I was working through my process of finding really what I wanted to say in my art, they faded away, and then I just stayed by myself, and that's when I knew that it's true me. But
Yeah.
it took me a while. It took me, I think, years to get rid of it. Years. Because like I can actually feel it. I feel it, in my work. There was an imprint of them, and
Yeah.
even though I didn't want that, but their voices were so strong that
Yeah.
they stayed with me for a while. And
Yeah.
then I just had to take what they said and then just somehow made it mine, but in a different way.
How long have you how long has it for you being an artist? How many years?
How many years? I think like since I finished university and I had my first exhibition, let's count it from there. Oh my God, I'm 44 right now, and it was when I was 18. So you can calculate it's more than 25 years.
Um, things have evolved. You've seen the evolution itself. Like, you started back when there was no internet. There was absolutely nothing when it came to the connections that we have today. And at that point, being an artist and choosing a career that's still a lot for a lot of people doesn't feel stable. And I do know, like we all know, that being an artist brings a little instability, and you have to work smarter, harder to bring that career stability in your life. But did you ever think, like, did this idea of, like, how will you actually make a living out of this, or finding opportunities here for yourself, how hard was it back then versus today, and how are you different? Do you think your approach has evolved, like, from then to now?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Uh, Very different, and I see it in people who actually stop themselves to live in that old world, and they don't they are not present on social media, or they're not present on various platforms. They practically didn't make it to a certain level of emerging artist career. And I think, yes, you're right, it was very different. So we didn't have social media, we didn't have Instagram, we didn't
Yeah.
have Facebook. So when we started an exhibit, it was a huge success when you have exhibition, right?
Yes.
It was a huge thing. So it was very much influenced by the way that you have to go and show your portfolio physically to a gallery, or you would just send the portfolio via email. But that was about it. Like most of the things were done face to face. It was
Yeah.
not communication. Like, it wouldn't be possible you and I would have a conversation on podcast like we do today, right? And for me, it certainly evolved. I always was, would say, cosmopolitan person. I was traveling a lot. My husband is American. We travel the world together, and so it's, for me, it's not a big deal to speak in English, or to be present on social media, or to actually be present on social platforms, or Saatchi art, or single art, or all these things, which, when I started as an artist to be present online, for a lot of people who weren't, let's say, who didn't have a language ability, or who didn't have a
Yeah.
communication ability, you can speak English, but you might not be able to do a podcast, right? So
Yeah.
uh, for these things, I think it's important for an artist nowadays to be a little bit of multitasker, in a
Yeah.
sense. And as you know, as you do what you do with your Arts to Hearts podcast, or Arts to Hearts project, it's wonderful. And it's
Thank you.
also filling a gap, how you can be present online, how you can be present for people, and show your art to the world, show the way that you're achieving what your art message is. So it definitely changed. I spent a lot of time doing some kind of marketing, or sending things to galleries which represent me via email, or create a PDF, or things like that. And the funny part is always when the gallerist would ask me, or gallery assistant, so just send it to your assistant. And I said, I don't have an assistant, it's me.
Like, you're pretty good with social media. You have a good following. Your work reaches a lot of audience today, and you make like those in situ, so which looks like you're technologically quite you've adapted to this change. How
Yes.
hard was that adapting? I mean, a lot of us even till today um haven't been that comfortable. So I think you've done a great job with that. How has that changed for you? How did you deal with that? And did you have any stigma? I really want to ask this. How is it for you in Eastern Europe? Did it mean like, the internet artist world, or like, and you've won a lot of awards. You have these, you've shown your work at such amazing places, and like you have that credibility with your work. And then you also have an additional, you've evolved with the changing times, and you've also taken that part in, made a place for yourself in the world of social media. How has that been for you?
Yeah, I think that part of that process, or perhaps like it changes with times, is that I am a super open person, and I have young students, which are part of my life, which are with me. I teach them, but I would say, interactively, just changing each other. So I would hear something new from them, and of course, they would learn from me what I can offer them with my experience or coaching. But I never was someone who wanted to stop in some position and just be there comfortably. I was always reaching higher. Let's say I was always trying to move forward, whether it's with my art or with my life. Like, because I do teach also psychology. I always tell my
Oh,
students,
wow.
it's always great that you are a better person next day. And if you fail one day, there is always another day to
I
prove
love that.
yourself and to actually, make it better. And so I believe that it's possible. I am not saying it's perfect. And I, of course, made tons of mistakes, of course, like everyone else. whether it was to connect with the galleries I shouldn't for at the beginning, or whether I did some mistakes that I don't even know, tons of it probably. But I was trying to stay humble and trying to stay open to things
Yeah.
which are coming my way. And whenever there is an opportunity, or there is a gallery who asks me for cooperation, or where there is a student who shows me something new, I listen. I stay
Yeah.
open and I listen, and I think that probably led towards that moment when things can change for you, or things can actually be modified, or you motivate others and others motivate you. So it's always the case, like meeting you. Okay, that's also a wonderful thing.
Okay. Something that I really want to ask, something this is very personal to me. We were just speaking about you know authenticity, finding your voice, and this is something I've had a conversation even in the previous recording today. Um, I don't make abstract art, and I'm very interested in knowing how the mind of an abstract artist works. Like, with figurative, it is still it itself, even like it still says something on its own. Like, you
Yes.
if there's a
Mm-hmm.
dog, or like, I'm just giving an example, okay? But
Uh-huh.
with abstract, I'm interested to know like what your process looks like. Like you say, like it's meditative, and but
Mm-hmm.
when you are making that art, do you have an idea already? Like how does your mind work? What is your creative process like?
Yeah, I think that it comes again towards what I said earlier, uh, to be open. Because when I start to paint, I have works which are acrylics, or let's say they are more elaborate, heavier works, which are, let's say, larger abstract paintings on canvas. And then I have a collection of work which is more calligraphic and more light, minimalistic. And in both those directions, I approach it a little differently. So when I create the large abstract scale work, or let's say I create a collection for an exhibition or for the show, so I usually carry the idea with me for a while. I do a little bit of colorful sketches, or I just, write down the ideas, or like I do a little bit of preparation or brainstorming, or I would think about things or compositions, or just sketch the composition or something. So with the large abstract scale work, I work a little differently than with the sumi ink calligraphy, because the calligraphy sumi ink for me, it's solemnly and solely meditative. And so for those works, I just started with being quiet and listening to myself. And from that moment of silence, I would create or execute the brushstroke, or execute a gesture, and sometimes it's just rubbish, I throw it away, because, sometimes our thoughts can be destructive, or can be
Yes.
chaotic, or don't concentrate, or don't speak from the point where you want them to. So, of course, not all of the works I keep, but the works which work with me, and the works which I consider the best, are coming from the point where I was able to fully connect to myself and concentrate. That's an abstract, minimalistic calligraphy work, I would say. And when it comes to my acrylic works, or the bigger works, large scale works, I work with the idea which I carry with me, and sometimes during the process of creativity, when I paint, I actually think about this idea which I carried, but the idea might change during the process, because it would like the process itself would lead me somewhere else. So
Yeah.
I would have, okay, well, this color is not working here, so I'm going to try a different approach. I'm going to I move it to a different angle, or like, it's the process itself is guiding me. So it is, to the degree, spontaneous, in a way that, okay, fine, I have that in mind, and it's still there. it's subconscious, but the idea might change during the process, and at the end, sometimes it's coming out the right way, and sometimes it takes
It
weeks, with
doesn't.
yourself, and it's not the right thing. It's still not good. It's still not working. It's still not, so you're coming back to the place where you were before, and therefore I always work on multiple canvases, and I like the way that when I work on multiple canvases and when I work on multiple pieces, it allows me to actually come back to peace and see from a distance, okay, well, this is not working, or this is not speaking to me, or this is great, or I keep that part, or what
But
would I do
yeah,
with that,
that
right?
conversation with the work that goes on.
Yes, yes, yes. So maybe you know that. I mean, this is usually how I do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I love, for me, I really personally enjoy that conversation while that after a while in between a work is being made, because it's like I have no idea why I'm saying this, but I know I'm saying this. Like you, like it's two different voice, yet it is still the same voice. Like
Yeah.
you are your work a lot of times, and it's like you're talking to your work, and like just that move. Like I would sit for hours and just look at it, move out, come back to it, and like it's like a serious discussion that you feel like you're having with your work.
Yes, and I think that's the honest thing to do, to have a discussion with your pieces, because then you can have practically a discussion with yourself. It's a part of
Yeah.
you, which is embedded in that piece, and that piece is actually speaking the way you
Yes.
speak, but you didn't know that all of these things are in you, or maybe some of it it's conscious, but some of it it's not yet. So it's just a serious discussion. Yes.
Love that. Okay, before we go into the rapid fire, one last question.
Uh-huh.
In these 25 years, what do you think was your um, biggest struggle, or something you feel like you learned along the way was something that held you back for a very long time as an artist? Like, we all come with different notions. Like, what was the most difficult part in this journey so far?
Okay, well, I will give you an honest answer. The most
Yes.
difficult part for me is to somehow navigate my family life, and to live as an artist as the way I want, because it's like it's a constant struggle for me. I always think that when I think that I'm good at it, something would show me that I'm not, and there is always this struggle between my role as a mother, and as a partner, and my role as a mother, an artist at first. And sometimes I feel guilty. I don't put so much emphasis into my family as I should, with when I'm painting for a couple days, and I might be so disconnected from this world. So I do things that they require me to do, and help them to drive my child to work, but my mind is somewhere
I love
else,
this. Like,
and
yeah,
then I feel
I
guilty that
feel
I'm
this. Like, yeah.
exactly, don't you? And it's really uh, and I mean, it's really hard to express it. It's really hard to navigate that, and it took me a while not to feel guilty that I am actually disconnected from my family at this point. So I can't be.
Do you think is this disconnection is also because like I feel like there are two sides to this, because I think as artists we get so immersed in this visual world that we create for ourselves, in this world we create in our head, and specifically in a time like, and we all crave for that, and sometimes life comes in the way, and that does not happen as often as we would like.
Yes, yes, yes.
But I see this as a very common thing also, because I just feel like with artists, the thing is that, if you're in a regular 9 to 5 job, we feel compelled. We know that like, you're getting paid to show up there, and there's a routine and there's a pattern. Versus the work that we do is very self-imposed. Like you have to make a pattern for yourself. You have to
Mm-hmm,
set deadlines for yourself, and you have to do.
mm-hmm.
And I think the difference is we so many times feel like we make that conscious choice. And I hear
Hmm.
that from a lot of artist mothers, like where I think the guilt comes in, where we feel like, okay, I'm choosing this time to make my art versus being with my family. Versus if we were had to go to some, like if you were going to work and you had to, like it still had to. I don't know if I'm putting this right. I don't know.
No, I think you are right, and but I think it's not only the physical absence, like because
Yes.
physically I'm most of the time here, but it's the different world, the dreamy world we live in. Like
Yes.
we, the way how our partners or how our children couldn't access us sometimes because we have such a strong ideas that it would occupy the inner space of us, the
Yes.
entire soul and body. So actually I think the most importantly is this, and we have a tremendous amount of discussion with about this with my partner,
Okay.
and he keeps telling me like there is nothing more important than your art.
Oh,
Like I
wow.
sometimes feel like I am not that important. And I would tell him, don't compare these two things. This is uncomparable. But so he feels, as a man, he feels like there is a disconnection between us based on being an artist
Yeah.
being an artist and pursue your dreams or carry your dreams constantly within. And I don't think that I can get them out. It's super honest, so I might listen to it.
I
But
love your honesty about this 100%. I'm so grateful that you're talking about this because this is something I think mother artist or anyone like we all feel this guilt at so many places, and especially like when it comes to marriage and children,
yes,
because I think also as mothers are primary caregivers, and as artists, and I also think as I think art I believe artists are also givers, in the sense that
yes,
I think
exactly. Yeah,
it takes a lot of courage to feel whatever you're feeling and put that in a creative out in the world in a form of creativity, and then separate yourself from it, because once it's out it has a life of its own.
yes,
And
exactly.
this balance of like how have you was the transition of being a mother hard for you, and taking your practice alongside all these years, how hard
Mm.
was that?
It was hard. I would say it was hard for a long time. I had doubts that I could actually make both to work. I had, and as you mentioned, there is a lot of us who actually would dare to be mothers and artists at the same time, and a
Yeah.
lot of us who said, I have a lot of friends who just gave up and say, okay, well, I'm not going to
Yeah.
pursue further. I'm just going to paint some few of my stuff once in a while and
Yeah.
sell it on the local markets. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's not what we do, and I had these discussions with all my friends artists when I was in France in residency in Chateau Orquevaux
Yes.
last year, and like all the male artists say, okay, well, we didn't have that problem, and I said, oh, no wonder.
Yes.
Because you never had to decide that way. And they, the difference is that there were a lot of them who were saying, like, my wife is helping me with my career. My wife is doing, my male friends. And they would say, my wife is doing like the Excel program for my paintings and helping me with that. Well, there is none of our husbands who did this for us. Nothing,
Yes.
zero. All of us, we had to do it for ourselves, or we had to hire someone to do it. So there is this very different polarity question, which we talk a lot with my friends, artist friends, women friends. Um, there is a lot of these women who have husband artists who would actually help the man to pursue career, but there is almost zero man who would say, oh, my beautiful wife, I'm so happy you're an artist.
Yeah.
So like there is a difference, and I think it has something to do with that part of our souls which is actually not belonging to them, and they
Yeah.
know it. And
Yeah.
that's something what we cannot have differently. It's not that we actually choose it, it's in us. And so I think for me it was difficult when I had Liam, my son. I was, doubting that if I can make it, but eventually I have just decided, yes, this is what I want to do, and
Yeah, and you'll
I
have to
can't
make
live
certain
without it.
sacrifices. You'll have to be okay with them, and it'll pinch you, it'll pain you. But then I think being stuck is painful. Moving forward is also painful. Like the kind of pain you choose is the question. How do you think your children look at you? I think truly, I think having creative parents and specifically artist, mother, father, or a parent, at least one, I think it's like I feel like it's a very different way of growing up. It's a very different way because as artists, I think we think differently. We I just feel like it's a very different way of living that we choose, and
Hmm.
raising children like that, I think it's a very different experience. How do your children look at you today? Like, how what are their views on be having an artist mother? How has that dynamic worked for you?
I have a son, only
Okay.
son. He is 11, and he is incredibly creative. He loves his, own ideas. He creates his own comic book, and
Wow.
what I've actually always try to support in him is to let him do his own thing. Like when he was younger, he used to paint with me in my studio. He was, as a little boy, he was painting with me, or we were doing like a bigger paintings on canvases. And now he's a teen, so he moved from painting towards drawing. So he can draw for hours, literally. But like I was trying to inspire him to come back to studio sometimes with me and paint. He doesn't want to. He wants to do his own thing. So I am fully fully supportive of that, and I think it's great that he creates. He has all these crazy ideas what he wants to do, or creates his masks, costumes, and he actually is very good in observing a movement. So when I see his drawings, they are very elaborate, and the movement is so precise. I'm stunned. So I think he's very talented, and I think that I don't only think it as a mom and a proud mom, but also like
Oh
other
wow.
people from galleries would spot him that he's talented. So it inspired some gallery to take him in and represent his work. So he has already
Wow.
some work in the gallery. Yeah.
Lovely. Andrea, this was so fun. Thank you so much. I really, really
Thank
had
you.
a great time talking to you. But I have a little rapid fire before we go.
Okay.
So let's start with a this or a that. Okay.
Mhm.
Creativity versus perfectionism. Which is that calls you more?
Totally creativity. Absolutely.
Morning or night? What is your zone of
Night.
creation? Night, you're
Night.
a night owl.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Oh wow. Okay. Um what kind of is your zone? Music or silence when you're creating?
Depends on the type of work. When I do calligraphy, it's silence. When I do big abstract work, it's music.
Music. I like that.
Hmm.
Okay. What is the worst piece of advice you've ever heard?
Worst? The worst?
Worst. Yes.
Uh huh. Mm, I don't know. No, I don't recall any. Like I didn't really have anyone who given me like a bad advices. Maybe yeah. Well, I mean, there are some people who advised me to work with different galleries. I didn't want to, but I mean, it's not nothing major. So lucky enough,
Okay.
nothing major.
Best piece of advice you've ever heard?
Best piece of advice: always work. Nobody is going to take the hours from in the studio away from you. And once you realize that they're there, you can always come back to it.
Lovely. I love that. Okay. How has technology helped or hindered your process as an artist?
Mhm. It helped me with my marketing and visibility for sure. And it helped me to connect with people all around the world. Sure. Yeah.
Okay. One last question. What is that one piece of
Mm-hmm.
advice would you like to give to anyone who's listening to this episode who wants, and I think specifically, I think I would ask you an advice for people who are actually struggling with managing their personal life with their artistic aspirations. I think I would take that advice for the last 2 years. I think that has been my biggest struggle as well.
What I would say, like it's always time for things to come your way. Be patient, and again, come back to your studio and work, and the things would appear on the right time and the right direction for you. Uh, Doubting yourself, it's completely normal, and it's natural. So accept that doubt, and then just push it away and come back to your work.
I love that. That's a wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you so much. So, for anyone who's listening to this episode or watching this episode, I think this is a great episode. We've talked about quite a few things, but I think my biggest takeaway from this episode personally is something I feel like very few people actually talk about. I think I've had over 100 to 150 guests, and very few people actually talk about the struggle that being an artist we feel when it comes to our personal and professional lives. And I've shared this in the past few episodes on the podcast, that how much I have personally struggled in the past 2 years, feeling like life has gotten so much in the way of my
Mm-hmm.
creative time. How much I feel like I want to get into the studio. So definitely your words were so comforting for me, because
Mm-hmm.
knowing that, when you hear from someone else also. So yeah, for anyone who's listening to this episode, if you're there, I think this episode is a reminder for you that you're not alone. We're all here with you. And if you like this episode and you think this would support someone in their journey, specifically who are currently having these struggles and need some comforting words, I think Andrea has some excellent advices for all of us. So make sure that you share this episode, support your community by sharing these resources. And if you liked what he spoke about, make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to your podcast. And make sure that you tag us in this episode, share this, and support. Before going, Andrea, I just want to take this moment to again thank you. And where can people who are listening to this episode right now, where can they find you, support you? Um, you know, if there is any other project that you're working on that we should, check out, use this space, let us know what's happening.
Okay, so I would like to thank you for inviting me as well, and for being able to share my ideas with the world. I am very happy to be present online on Instagram as Andrea Circles, but for my next upcoming projects, which are super important to me as an artist, but as also as a woman artist and as a mother, is you can find me and follow my projects with Art Connect Society, which is the project we create a wonderful exhibition, pro bono exhibitions with Valentine's Svihalek, but also with other artists, women artists, and she is the CEO of that project. We're creating the projects for a women's shelter in Brno right now,
Wow.
and we're creating a lot of charity-orientated projects with Doctors Without Borders, Amal Foundation. I'm going to be part of this march. And having my live painting performance there. It's the 24th of March for people who live in our part of the world. I'm going to be performing there, also pro bono. But most of my projects are accessible online. You can see them. You can, see if there is anything happening right now. And I would be very happy to hear a feedback from all of you, and from you as well personally. So thank you very much for all you do, and for the voice in the world you're creating.
Thank you so much. That's very nice of you. And for anyone who wants to go deeper, for this episode, you'll find actually not only a transcript, but we will be converting, like by the moment you would be hearing this, there is an article on Andrea with this conversation in a format of Q&A with a lot more pictures of Andrea's work, her studio process. I'm going to ask Andrea to send us some, videos or something insight, like for our readers only. So we will be putting up a resource focused on Andrea and her work that you can dig deeper. And thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Make sure that if you like this episode, you give her a thumbs up, subscribe, and just thank you so much for tuning in. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you.